Hello, everyone, and welcome to Respawn episode / volume 8. I am Colby.
And I'm Derek.
And today we have an interesting, somewhat mundane, but really roller coaster ride of a volume. This is a volume where it starts off right where the last one left off, and there's a lot of setup, but you do get a big payoff. But until that payoff, it's a lot of nothing bad, but not a ton going on, so it's maybe a faster episode.
Yeah, honestly, my overarching thought on this volume is pretty mediocre. One thing I will say right up front is I feel like at this point McFarlane has gotten a lot better at juggling subplots.
Yeah.
But almost to the point where he forgets to have a main plot, I think, in a couple of issues here. But then it does end up on just a crackerjack finale.
Oh, yeah.
I've talked before about how issue 50 of Spawn was my first issue where I decided I was going to collect Spawn as a comic for, a number of issues, and I think I topped out around about 80. So for the next 30 or so issues, I'll actually have some nostalgic memories for that. And going back and reading issue 50 again this time, I remember why I was like, I have to keep going. That's a fucking fantastic issue. Before we get into the actual volume, though, I want to talk a little bit about some interesting Spawn developments in yours and my life. So I think it's fair to say that this is a very supportive of Cygor podcast.
Yeah.
And since the time we recorded our last show, I have picked up Spawn number was it 34, the first appearance, or I bought the first appearance of Cygor at a used bookstore recently, and you got one of those Cygor figures you were wanting.
Yeah, the weird Todd McFarlane Walmart Cygor figures.
So we have cemented our Cygor fandoms in our own particular ways. I thought that was pretty delightful.
Well, to me it was so serendipitous that the month we talk about Cygor, for some reason, he puts out a weird Walmart-only line of Cygor-influenced and Cygor figures, and then you find the debut issue at the local mart. This is becoming a trend where I just get a frog in my throat at the very beginning of recording.
I was worried about that. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. This happened for those listening, it happened on Blah Blah too. I don't know why this is happening.
It did. And, okay, so the other thing I want to do real quick, because I did this on Blah Blah, but I know a lot of our listeners of Respawn just listen to Respawn, which is great. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. But in non-Spawn related news, again, I want to put out there right up front, I am not a paid Humble Bundle shill. This episode is not sponsored by Humble Bundle in any way, shape, or form. However, the current comics Humble Bundle is 2000 AD and Judge Dredd, and as a $15 contribution to the charity the 2000 AD is picked out, you can get 5 case files of Judge Dredd. You get all 3 Ballad of Halo Jones by Alan Moore, who we talked about on the show as being a pretty solid Spawn writer, with the exception of the freak issue, cough cough. Sure. Al Ewing's Zombo comics, which I absolutely adore. Grant Morrison's Zenith books, which, again, we are passionate worshipers of Grant Morrison on this show.
Oh, yeah.
Plus a whole bunch of other 2000 AD comics digitally for you. I know this is a Spawn podcast, but for the love of God, go buy those comics, contribute to charity, and read some really, really tremendous British comics from the 1980s and 90s.
Oh, yeah. Today. Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a lot of great books in that. Yeah, sorry, I don't know why it's happening on Blah Blah too. In the middle of talking, it's oh, my throat feels scratchy. Let me take a drink. And then oh, no voice.
Now I'm dying.
Yeah. I got to finish what my thought was a minute ago. Cygor figure, really cool. Very serendipitous that both of us were able to find cool Cygor pieces the literal month we talk about Cygor for no reason. Again, I cannot figure out why McFarlane was just ran hey, let's make a line of Cygor figures and make new creatures like him.
Especially considering he has not responded to my Instagram messages to try to get him on the show. It'll never happen, but I'm going to keep trying.
Hey, never know. There's 1 or 2 people that we may eventually get on the show, which would be awesome.
That's true.
Obviously, he's our Moby Dick of this. He's our white whale. We'll get him one day. But We don't know when that day will be.
Right. Maybe we just need to get big enough. We just need to become a voice so loud that he can't ignore us. Which sounds like something Todd McFarlane would say, actually.
That is very true. Did you ever get to watch the Todd McFarlane sci-fi documentary?
I still haven't.
Oh,
oh dude, I swear it's on my list. It's been a very busy couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to. What you told me about it has been thrilling and exciting, and it sounds tremendous. I hope our listeners have had a chance to watch it. I think that if they want to get in contact with you and talk to you about it, I think they should, because that would be great.
Oh, yeah, no, it is something that I would, if we do a Patreon or if we do something like that, around the time we get to 300, because the whole documentary is leading up to 300, it would be a cool maybe watch along thing to do.
Yes,
because it is it's really awesome. Yeah, no, I was trying to think of any other big, because we've had all the big DC news. I was gonna say at first, if you guys like, because this volume involves a lot of creepy crawlies, I was gonna say, you should watch Lovecraft Country, but then episode 2 came out and the show is almost completely different. So I will get back to you on that one.
I loved episode 2. I wonder what they're going to do for season 2,
yeah,
because they just did the entire, what feels like a season's worth of content in an episode, but holy crap, what an episode!
Yeah, this is more blah blah talk, so we'll steer back, but it is. If you guys out there watching it, it does have some cool Lovecraftian and almost in Spawn-esque creatures and creature designs in it. So if you are a fan of that, I could recommend. And it has, honestly, knowing what we've seen in Spawn in these first volumes, very similar political ideals of what Spawn tries to deal with. Sometimes really well, sometimes not so well, but is always in the core of that book. That's one thing about Spawn in particular that I think is odd these days, especially since we're doing this big reread. Spawn makes no bones about it, about dealing with racial prejudice, dealing with abuse, dealing with, cops, and with all stuff. It is interesting reading Spawn in 2020, where you have this outcry of different people about how, comics shouldn't be political, some think they should only be political, and you look back, even a book like Spawn, like, hey, even a book like Spawn, lot of politics in this book.
Mm-hmm, yeah. McFarlane, kind of, he's definitely not shy when it comes to his personal beliefs or his personal sense of right and wrong.
For sure. And in this issue, we're going to talk about it first, 45. I had to look at my notes. We start to get this weird run through that will carry over for a long time in Spawn, where Todd McFarlane thought of an idea that I do think it's a cool idea, and we will explore it a lot. This idea of kind of how evil is represented on Earth, and how kind of getting further and further away from God's quote-unquote light can almost manifest in some of the darker, creepy crawlies of the world.
Right.
And we get...
And I also agree it's a very interesting idea.
Yeah. In 45, we start that. So we start by continuing the fight from 44, where Tiffany is fighting Spawn. It starts off with Tiffany having the upper hand. It looks, she explains how you kill a Hellspawn, why so few have, why it's so hard. It looks like she has killed Spawn, and actually in a clever art trick, so clever that I get why they put the text bubble like, oh, had she been noticing, blah, 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 because she decapitates them, but then it cuts to, throughout this, we should just say so, throughout this volume, great art by Tony Daniel and Greg Capullo throughout.
Yes, yeah, again, Tony Daniel, I feel like every issue levels up and brings something new and better to the table.
Oh, yeah.
Especially after, ironically, his debut issue, which was Cygor, which had some questionable art choices. Sure. He definitely pulls together. And then Capullo is just fucking top notch.
Yeah, Capullo top every time. Every time he's doing an issue, you can 100% tell, because even though Tony Daniel is getting better and better, and you can kind of start seeing the artist he would eventually become, we're still at this point where he had some rough edges, and Capullo is starting to file off his rough edges.
Yes.
So you're getting some cool contrast, but all around great art. Anyway, you have this fight going on. She goes to cut off his head. It has a cool image of the head kind of morphing into these worms in her hand being covered with it. And, of course, these worms that have been nesting and hiding all over his suit have literally made an illusionary head of his meat head, which also, knowing his head looks so much like a fucking pile of meat at this point in time, actually kind of visually does make somewhat sense.
Absolutely, and then also you started to call this out in the art, but then we started talking about how great the art was. There it goes from panel 1 on that page where you very clearly see Spawn is still masked,
Yeah.
to panel 3 where the head falls to the ground and it is a maskless head. And you're right, that was a very clever piece of art that I actually needed called out in the text to me because I hadn't really noticed.
Yeah, it was.
So good on McFarlane for that.
Yeah, no, there is some great visual storytelling, and for the most part, there is not too much of what we get down on Todd about like over explaining things. He's getting really good at this point of not. There are moments, but for the most part, never dwelling into some of the first like 15 issues what they would do.
Mm-hmm. I put in my notes, it is appropriately histrionic, though.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a battle between a Hellspawn and their angelic opposite number needs to be Wagnerian, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the dialogue here is very over the top in the best way. It's reflecting the size and scope of the battle between these two heavenly and unheavenly creatures.
Oh yeah, and we're getting throughout this volume and throughout the previous volume. That's very interesting. Where we're getting a very subtle build up for Angela, and even though Angela's a character I love and adore, I forget how little she's in the main Spawn series.
That's true, yeah.
And again, spoilers, we don't have that much longer until she's permanently not in the series. And we are getting close. I mean, it's far enough off where it'll be a while before we talk about it, but it's, right. I can't remember exactly. I think it might be issue 100. That would be the obvious one.
That makes sense.
But, like, they're slowly building her up. They're mentioning the background of Spawn, her saying that she was just, a rogue whore, essentially. Spawn, screaming at her that she is nowhere near as good as Angela in any way. And we also get...
And Angela was too good for your god.
Yes. That is a powerful line.
Yeah.
We're getting a little build of that. And then we get one of the most vicious, quote-unquote, kills, where how Spawn defeats her is all these creatures of the night, all these creepy crawlies, bats, and wolves, literally are summoned, surround her, and pick her flesh off until she's just a pile of bones.
Right. Appear to completely... eat her.
Yeah.
And I kind of do wonder where like giant black bears and venomous snakes and all of that have appeared. But also, the point of the story still stands. And I think again, McFarlane juggling subplots really interestingly here. He's been building this up for a couple issues where the costume very specifically seems very comfortable and at home with these darker creatures, and then it also starts to build the idea that not only is the costume comfortable with these, it's also has some form of control over them that Al Simmons very importantly points out does not.
Yeah, we actually this book towards the end of this issue we get a lot more of the explanation of his suit's going fucking crazy, and we start getting more and more of that. But before that, we do get Wanda going up for a checkup at the doctor and learning that, she's got... I will say, the doctor totally underplays it because, you just have a little bit of strep throat and a little bit of an infection. And it's like, those are two things that can wipe people the fuck out.
Right.
I feel like she would have noticed.
I honestly thought we were going to get a Wanda's pregnant story.
Oh, yeah. No,
I really thought that's where this was headed.
We eventually will, but not right now. So... you get that, but also you get this little side note of something's gone on with Terry that we don't quite know, but there's a health thing that Wanda's worried about Terry, and that's why she went to go get checked up. Minor note I may bring up again later, this doctor does apparently very thorough checkups because both her and Terry are just down to their underwear when in the checkup room. I'm like, they're doing full-on physicals for strep throat, apparently, because...
Apparently, yeah. And I can't knock Capullo for this, but goddamn, the checkup scene, there is almost overly sexual.
Yeah, I will say Capullo has the Frank Miller issue of he can be so good at drawing women sometimes that you can tell he almost gets too excited at moments of he's going all in.
That panel with Wanda with the tongue depressor in her mouth is just like I absolutely see what he's going for, and a little sexual, a little titillating, I can get that, but it's almost to creep
Yeah.
factor.
I will say, it did save it that Terry's in basically the same position later. Like, okay, at least it's not... Because I was thinking a very similar notion. I don't normally care. Like, okay, it seems a little much, especially when she was just in her bra and panties. But again, when Terry's just in his underwear, I was like, okay, well, this doctor apparently is just extremely thorough.
Right. Yeah. Which, again, it's not the worst thing. It
No.
doesn't. It's not upsetting, but it is just something I felt like it needed to be addressed. Also, we do get 3 or 4 pages of us moving along the Sam and Twitch plot, which again I am so completely impressed with McFarlane and how he has clearly realized what he wants to do with these characters and has started pushing them in that direction over the last few issues. And also, Capullo draws the shit out of them in this issue. They're funny. They have a real Abbott and Costello's routine going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's a blast. And basically what happens is Sam reveals to Twitch that he has a nest egg that he was eventually saving for a family that he now knows he's never going to have. So why not start a private detective agency, and would Twitch be his partner?
Yeah, there's a couple of very sweet moments between Sam and Twitch in this entire volume.
Mm-hmm.
Some really nice moments that are very, very loving and also very, very friendly in a way that makes sense. I mean, so in a world where we're very used to having bi-weekly comics and having many issues be 50 to 70 to 80 to 100 issue runs, it is crazy looking back through this and seeing how much development has actually happened between issue 1 and 45.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like that is something that we are somewhat losing almost a little bit with the monthly, and I don't know if we're necessarily losing it or if people are just doing more filler issues or more thorough issues of explaining a certain minor plot point and making a bigger plot point out of it. Because even like rereading a couple arcs currently, and I'm like, okay, I'm on issue 20 and we're finally getting to this cool part. Here, in issue 45, Sam and Twitch have been on a roller coaster of adventures already.
That is true, but also, I swear there was a good, I'll be generous and say 5-issue stretch where McFarlane had no idea.
Oh yeah,
he knew they needed to know something. He didn't know what it was, and all he could do was keep, reminding the audience that there was something there. And by the time he figured out what it was, holy shit, what a bombshell! He fixed it. He absolutely fixed it. But there was a moment. A longer than probably comfortable moment where he very clearly did not know what he wanted to do with that story. But now that he does, he's just, continuing to build on it. And it's one of my favorite percolating subplots of the entire series so far.
Same here. Oh, by the way, they do give a name for this, for the Hellspawn getting evil energy from worms and things. It's called the Black Dispersal.
Right.
Is the name they give it. That, literally goes into issue 46 because we just covered basically all of 45.
With the exception of, it has the one and only news exposition page.
That's right. And you know what? If we get one per volume, I'm fine with that. That's not bad.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
I will agree with that. It's a McFarlane staple. It's not going away. So if we can keep it to twice a year, I'll live with that.
Yeah, I agree. 46, we get dive into Tony Twist returns, and they...
/ Vito Gravano.
Yeah.
Okay, so people who've been following this podcast from the beginning, I was asking Colby from the very beginning, okay, who is Vito Gravano? Where is Tony Twist? What's going on?
It now makes sense, though, knowing that this is around the time you started reading.
Right, yes. And those names are, in this issue, pretty much used interchangeably. Sometimes he's Gravano, sometimes he's Twist, and it looks like what it is that with certain business associates, he's Gravano. Yeah. With other business associates, he's Twist. Which makes sense. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, there's a couple times, I swear it's in the same sentence they go back and forth.
It's at least on the same page.
Yeah, there were one or two times where even I had to check back and look at my notes of like, oh, okay, okay, this is what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was for a moment there, especially in the first opening pages, like, the caption will say Tony Twist, the guy's talking to him and saying Vito, and then they're going back here, and they're going back here. It's like, okay. We get more definition of worms, specifically basically being living bottles of sin as far away from God's life.
love that description.
Yeah.
They're basically bottled sin, and that is what the costume is using to heal and recharge and grow.
Yes.
And that's honestly kind of fantastic. That's a really neat innovation. And again, it's one of those ideas you can tell McFarlane didn't have set in the beginning, but he kind of stumbled upon it as he was writing.
Yep.
And he has incorporated it into the tapestry of this universe so well.
Oh yeah.
I doff my hat to him, because I've had that moment, in my own writing, where I realized something that I didn't initially conceive, but it makes so much sense, and it makes the story richer and better. And you really love those moments, and you love to see them in other people's work. And yeah, this has been one of the biggest developments for Spawn outside of possibly the costume redesign, which was also written into the story as, the costume evolving. So yeah, this is some really, really solid work from McFarlane, just as, again, growing as a writer, and seeing the potential of his own ideas come to fruition. It's really, really something to witness.
Oh, I agree. It's really cool, and it is one of those moments where you can see, okay, there's a reason for this. He has found something cool, and this will continue on for a long time in Spawn, and it evolves in different ways. We get another more clear confirmation that, okay, something's going on with Terry. He is sick. There's something going on here.
Mm-hmm. And again, I'm really so deeply impressed with how McFarlane has learned to weave subplots.
Yeah.
Because I'm just going to go ahead and speak for the whole volume at this point. The development of Terry's illness over these 5 issues is absolutely perfectly played.
It is.
Between these 5 issues.
And it's also not overly drawn out, because that is something that he
has been guilty of in the past.
He's been guilty of, and so many writers in comics especially are guilty of, where you'll have, for 20 issues in the background, something going on that ends up being important, but maybe not worth the payoff. He kind of bounces this perfect off, and when we find out what's going on with Terry, it is almost a perfect payoff of when we find out to where we find out what it is. The perfect amount of time of, okay, the build-up matches the payoff.
Exactly, 100% yes. I'm so glad McFarlane didn't tip his hand and try to do this even an issue or 2 earlier, because you're right, 5 issues is the exact right amount of time to get us to that slam bang impact in issue 50.
Oh yeah. We then have a quick comparison, because I will say we've seen it in so many ways where in recent years, even though it was also done really well, we had a similar, without spoiling too early, similar thing going on with Jason Aaron and the Jane Foster story.
Mm-hmm.
And that one I feel like just went on just a little bit too long before the reveal happened.
Agreed.
And it kind of hurt the story, because there were at least like 4 or 5 issues like, okay, we kind of know what's going on here, but can we just say it for sure?
Mm-hmm.
And this never got to that point. We did get a bunch of Vito's men literally being just killed off viciously, and him getting a box of 2 of their heads.
Yeah, and that's another thing I wanted to. I keep saying that this podcast. Yep. Another thing I wanted to compliment McFarlane on, especially compared to and when I say early issues, I mean single-digit issues of Spawn. I don't know if he's done some reading, or he's just watched some movies that Brian Bendis recommended to him, or what. But I feel like he's got a much better grasp of the mafia, and how to tell a story of the fictional mafia in this world. It feels more right now than it did in some of the earlier issues.
Well, and oddly enough, because of outside of Respawn, because of the new Batman trailer, I've been rereading Long Halloween, and like reading even that, because even that it can be guilty of being almost the way the mafia works. In that being almost too much written like The Godfather.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, the book opens with "I believe in Gotham City." Come on.
Yeah. This never quite go to that point, but it does reach, okay, I can see some Goodfellas, I can see some Casino, I can see some little things here and there, I can see some similarities between media that was going on at that point in time, plus some older Godfather, things like that, Scarface even. You have you have them talking like gangsters, but never to the point of, okay, this is just Vito Corleone. Or, okay, this is just so-and-so.
Or never to the point of parody either. It's never... I love Brandon Lee, but one of his earliest movies, he was taking on an Italian mob, and like every time you saw the Italian mob when they weren't actively killing somebody, they were sitting around a table eating spaghetti. It was kind of hilarious, and you don't get to that level of goofiness.
Yeah, because even Long Halloween, one of the most celebrated Batman stories of all time, that like beginning couple of issues, there's so much of it's I brought you here, and it just happens to be that literally like the day of a wedding. I brought in I made sure to ship in cannoli straight from Italy. I made like a lot of that little like okay you're it's still good but you're on the fringes.
You're really laying it on thick. Yeah,
I get what's going on here, and it's like I haven't read it a long time, so I forget until you start getting those supervillain moments in that book. You have that here. It blends better, and then the only thing it doesn't blend well, and McFarlane has talked about this before, is Trimmer's always has been a very iffy character to work with in the comics, and we do get the return of Trimmer.
Yeah, and okay, two things I just want to say real quick. One, I feel like Orca is a sadly underused character because in his like 2 pages in issue before he is brutally murdered, I love his introduction, and I actually really like how Tony Daniel draws him.
Yeah.
And two, I find Trimmer so fucking dull. I'm sorry.
No,
I can't even hate him the way I hate the Freak. I find him so dull.
Well, you're definitely not alone, because again, McFarlane famously has not used him a ton because I know for a long time he considered him way too kiddish and cartoonish, and then he tried to remake him and remodel him, and it kind of worked. And even to this day, that's a character that he has admitted and has talked about. He's never quite got satisfactory to him, and even in this, you do feel it because he has this weird combination of this vicious look, but almost like a '90s cartoon TMNT era. How he talks and acts.
That is such a good description of it. Yeah, like visually, he feels like he should be much more like a Pit type character or something. But his personality and his honestly kind of almost his backstory does feel like a more violent version of something you would see in the Ninja Turtles, and not the Eastman Layer Turtles, but like the '89 cartoon.
Yeah, we get the reveal that Tiffany is still alive. That you can't kill an angel that way. She can shapeshift. She can reform. You have to completely obliterate her light and get rid of her light to kill her.
Can we talk about Cog for a minute? Because that's who makes that revelation.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned Cog. Cog is in this volume a lot, and actually have a lot of big reveals about Cog in this volume.
Yes, very much so. Okay, there was one thing. I don't know if it was this issue or if it was like in a couple issues time, but he says Al says that Cog implies that. Oh God, why am I blanking on his name? The Jason Wynn.
Yeah.
Did not give the execution order. When did he imply that? Because I don't actually remember that.
Oh, early when he was talking about make sure you're fighting the right people, make sure you're going after.
Oh, so like back in that volume. Okay. Yeah. Like 2 volumes ago, I think. Yeah. I see. That's right. And then the other thing, I can definitely empathize with Al's take on Cog, which is stop with the goddamn riddles and just tell me something to my face.
I was going to say, there's a very meta moment of him just like, I'm tired of the riddles. Tell me, if you want to tell me something, tell me what's going on.
Right. But also I can get behind Cog because the thing that's kind of famous about Al Simmons at this point, at least to me, and I've addressed it on this podcast before, he doesn't listen.
Yeah.
For being, this incredibly elite assassin, who honestly has a chip on his shoulder about authority sometimes, that's fine, but is also really good at taking orders. Dude does not listen for crap.
Well, he's also, I had never pieced this together until this issue, because also they're drawn, I don't know if this matches up, because we learn a little later, McFarlane puts an age on Wanda, and because of their story, you can kind of put a similar age on Al. Way younger than I thought they were.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I would have had these guys in there easily in their 30s, and that's not the case.
Yeah, because again, minor spoiler. There's a very minor bit of dialogue where we learn that Wanda's 29, which,
and if that means Al was killed 5 years ago, they got married young, early 20s, and they clearly had a marriage and a relationship prior to Al dying. So you can assume they probably got married 22, 23 at
Yeah,
the latest.
exactly. And started dating maybe 20. So a lot of that does kind of go back and forth. Okay, maybe that explains a little bit of the hotheadedness, a little bit of. You can kind of blame on that. Again, I don't know if he always had him around that age. And because, I guess just because of how American comics work, like Batman, you always just think of Batman around 32 to 35.
Yeah,
Spawn always had a similar thing. I know at this point he's like, it doesn't matter how old he is because of his power set and everything. However,
right.
it's just weird to go like, oh, also they're drawn. I just would not have guessed 29.
Dude, I remember. This is absolutely derailing the conversation for a second, but okay, so I'm. If you're listening to Respawn, you probably know this, but you might not. I am a huge X-Men fan. I have a couple thousand piece X-Men collection. And I remember when I was a kid, in my teens, reading some issue of X-Men and reading the letters page, and somebody asked about ages of X-Men, and I can't remember the other ages they gave for the other X-Men on the team, but I remember very specifically the editor saying that Rogue and Gambit were both in their late teens. And my response to that, even at the time, was, oh, bullshit.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way Gambit is 18 or 19.
It's a very weird thing because in anime, it is so just easily, okay, they're 15, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're 15, they look like they're 35, and they have the experience of a 35-year-old, whatever. If for some reason in comics, it works so much worse when you have little notes like that. I mean, crap, I've bitched about Cable and X-Men right now, a ton of Cable and Kid Omega and the Cuckoos. No one seems to have a clear, even idea if they're 15 or 22.
Right.
Which is,
yeah, Kid Cable is anywhere between 12 and 20, depending on the comic he's in.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. So on one hand, I am glad he's at least putting them at an age that is somewhat reasonable for the experience they've had and what they've done. But that being said, yeah, I just wouldn't have expected that. And also, it does put a lot more weight on losing what she's facing later on. That's later. Well, we're jumping ahead a little bit.
Yeah, we've got to finish this Trimmer story. Which, to be fair, the back half of this Trimmer story is pretty decent. The switcheroo that Tony Twist / Vito Gravano pulls on the characters is pretty solid. Spawn telling Trimmer basically, "Stop fucking with me," is really solid. It doesn't feel like quite enough story for the page count it gets. He probably could have done the entire Trimmer thing as one issue as opposed to two.
Yeah,
but it's probably the best version of this story with this exceedingly dull character we were going to get.
Yeah, we'll just dive in because this goes straight into 47. We have Trimmer, of course, kidnapping one of Tony Twist's higher-ups. He brings him to Spawn. He basically asks him for help in exchange for information. We start this issue with him, Spawn sending him to kidnap someone else. We're getting a little bit more information and some bigger connections on how Terry and Wynn and Spawn, everyone's connected. We get a little bit more of that. In this issue, I don't know why, but it hit me so weird because one of those, that wasn't thought out the best, is when you have the one dude that's having a threesome with the two girls and goes to the bathroom. And they have this huge thing of how much noise this is making, and it's Trimmer fucking pulling the man through mortar and brick and pipes, and then he goes, "Don't make a sound." It's like, what the fuck did you just do?
Right.
You dug up through the ground, through an apartment building, through the walls, and brought him down that way, and then you're going to be like, be quiet or else someone's going to hear you.
And it's the big splash page reveal of who's been doing it, which is Trimmer.
Yeah.
And it's kind of dumb as hell.
We get Clown and Wynn talking in the car about what's going on, and kind of Wynn Clown doing a little bit, and you learn more about a little bit of kind of why he's doing this and kind of how he's more jealous of humans than we thought.
And again, I think it gets more page space than it needs. I think this overall, for as much as this issue does good, I think this is a fairly weak issue.
Yeah, it's not like, again, there's a lot. You have Trimmers. You get Trimmers doing this try save. You learn that Tony Twist, what started this whole thing in the last issue we didn't mention, Tony Twist is he thinks he's keeping Trimmer's brother hostage, and he's still alive. And one reason Trimmer's been trying to save his brother, so that's why he's getting Spawn's help. We then learn that Tony Twist does have his brother, but his brother does not believe Trimmer is his brother.
Right. The Trimmer's brother believes that the person who Trimmer was is in fact the brother who died, and that Trimmer is the one who killed him, and that Trimmer's brother, whose name neither one of us can actually remember
Franklin,
right now.
I want to say.
David.
David. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the issue right now. But yeah, David is like, I owe everything I am to Tony Twist, and Trimmer tries to talk him down, and there's too many pages spent on that. But also, I really appreciate the story. Like I said, it's probably the best version of this not very good story we could have gotten.
Yeah.
And then also we occasionally cut to Spawn outside just fucking wrecking shop all over Tony Twist's men.
Throughout this issue and last issue and all the issues, Spawn's suit is getting more and more violent. He's getting less and less aware of how violent his suit is getting, how violent he's getting in the moment, because we learn a little bit later on, a little bit further, that the suit wants to go home, and how, the suit knows that the more power it expends, the more violent actions it does, and the worse things it do, it gets closer and closer to going back to hell.
Right.
Which is an interesting little note to go off of.
Mm-hmm.
We get...
And again, it plays into what we've learned about the symbiote suit so far, even going all the way back to when we first learned about it in issue 4 or 5, whenever it is, when we were first introduced to the character that ends up being Malbolgia. The whole trick of the suit is either you do nothing, evil, more evil men come down to my realm, or you expend your energies too quickly, and then I've got a new general in my army.
Yeah.
This is my evil plan. So Spawn's suit actually gaining, evolving to having a certain level of sentience and basically being homesick ties into that.
It does
pretty well.
We get Trimmer's brother, Spawn. Trimmer's brother's trying to basically kill Trimmer because he believes, like you mentioned, that he thinks he killed his brother. Spawn comes in, wrecks shop, basically shoots Trimmer's brother's leg off, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know what else, and again, he's getting more and more violent. He's like, he'll be okay if he gets help soon.
Yeah.
And then sends Trimmer and his brother off. Meanwhile, Tony Twist, it is a cool image of Tony Twist being like, I have an army out there, not going to stop it, and then seeing that Spawn has just obliterated his entire army and left a giant pile of bodies in his yard.
That is weirdly similar to his throne shape, which I kind of love.
Also, he leaves Tony Twist alive for reasons. That's my one thing. It's like, that was the one moment, like, okay, you are needed later on in the plot, so Spawn's not going to kill you, even though there's no reason really not to kill him.
Yeah, and again, there's that ever ubiquitous, I have stuff on you, here's a copy, I'm blackmailing you, and I think that's a McFarlane, at least in these early issues, goes to a few too many times for my taste. Again, it's not bad, but it's definitely a sign of, once again, a journeyman writer. He's definitely grown in certain ways, but he also has crutches he falls back on. And I have dirt on you is one of those crutches for sure.
Yeah. And that's basically that issue. Like again, we get like kind of a mini detour in those issues. Mm-hmm. And then we start building big stuff. Because then 48, it starts off with a little bit of Wynn talking that's not super important, just setting up basically as a badass office and he's powerful.
It's the ubiquitous first page splash with almost entire, just covered in blocks of text. At least these blocks of text are about half dialogue, so it's more showing than telling, at least to a certain extent. I'll give it a pass.
Yeah, it's not horrible. It's by no means the worst. We have Sam and Twitch in their new office.
Yes.
Which is a really cool, fun, very like Daredevil and Foggy type of thing.
Absolutely. I don't know. I get where the comedy is supposed to be coming from, but if Sam Burke is the detective that we're meant to believe he is, I can't accept that he is this bad with money and with being basically shystered by landlords.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
It's a little too much. It goes a little too far in a search for humor.
I could see that, because I think there's other ways to write around it, but either way, it is cool to see Sam and Twitch kind of off into this new direction for the two. Away from
and
the
also
police.
We get a mysterious envelope, which again,
we do.
McFarlane tends to lean on that crutch a little bit, but since we don't have that moment resolved, I am still very curious as to who Sam and Twitch's mysterious informant is.
That's very true. We get we go from that. We get a lot of the bums in the alley talking about how Spawn, why are people? Half of them are getting more and more against Spawn. Half, a bunch of them haven't been there that long, so they didn't see Spawn protecting it. You have the kind of outliers that were Spawn friends, but he's not talking to them as much, and he's also getting more and more violent, so he is just not
Boots
there.
And Bobby.
Yeah, you get Bootsy, Bobby talk, all that. You get
just because of the animated series, I've always just kind of been like, I like Bobby.
Yeah,
it's
I like
I can't say he's a favorite supporting character or anything, but every time he shows up on page, I'm like, oh, I like Bobby.
Yeah, he's not bad. He's not a bad character, and how they handle him's not bad at all either. I think it's kind of fun. We go from that to you have then Spawn is building something, and
he's essentially building a cage.
Yeah,
and I think my favorite piece of art, possibly in this entire issue, is the splash page of him carrying a manhole and like a giant piece of pipe. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. It's really well drawn. It's the best thing Tony Daniels contributed to this series to this point.
And you get him and Cog into a little bit of an argument, kind of what we talked about earlier about Cog. Like tell me what's going on if you want to tell me. And Cog not getting a lot out because Spawn is being again very, very violent.
Yeah.
We have more of Wanda, wondering what's going on with Terry, more of Terry at the office, and kind of having his first big scares with having a blackout.
Yeah, it's his first blackout, and again, very well handled. I don't really have so much to say about it at this point because I feel like I've already expressed all of my joy and happiness over when we talked about it previously. I'm just like, this is part of what I was referring to, the really well done, quiet, smart build-up. It's all right here.
Yeah, no, it really is. We have a little bit more development with Sam and Twitch. Again, they're just kind of their dynamic's always fun.
Doing a very Abbott and Costello routine at this point. It's honestly, these 2 pages feel like, oh god, this issue is 2 pages short. Sam and Twitch get stuck in an elevator. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very true. We do. Go back to Alley. Spawn kidnaps Bobby. Tells him that
I like Bobby.
Yeah, I do too. Tells him that he'll be disappearing for a little bit, but he's actually not going anywhere. Don't tell everybody else. He's got some stuff to take care of. He has a little bit more with Cog, and then puts himself into hiding.
Mm-hmm. Plus, we kind of in the issue where we began with Jason Wynn sitting in his office, and again, Clown just kind of showing up and dropping some hints about what may be coming in the future.
It's true. Then
it's an oops all subplot issue.
Yeah.
But again, I know I've already said it this podcast, McFarlane has really progressed in how he juggles subplots. So it's not a bad issue. I feel like even 10 issues ago, trying to attempt an issue like this, which just keeps the subplots percolating, would have been dire. But here it's just like, it's a solid little read.
It really is. I enjoyed it. It's a lot, like I said, a lot of subplot, a lot of build up. This goes right into 49, which I will say has one of my favorite Spawn covers of pretty much all time. I love the cover of 49.
It's horrifying. It's very, very interesting. And again, that's Capullo showing off in the best way.
We have this incredible cover. It starts off with Granny, who we always love Granny.
We love Granny. She's one of our favorite supporting characters.
You have some as always, very sweet moments with Granny. Some very good stuff. And he starts learning that something's not right with Terry. And as Terry's condition continues to worsen, we continue to get little hints, but he doesn't know what's going on. The doctors don't know what's going on for sure. Mm-hmm. And, Spawn.
They're bringing in a neurologist, and, that's even to, again, 14, 15-year-old Derek is like, oh, that's serious.
Yes.
It's again, well played. It's
really
everything about the subplot's really sharp.
It really is. We have, that little bit. You have, Cog going to check on Spawn, see what's going on. He walks in on Spawn, who's literally like...
Well, he breaks in on Spawn, which I think is really, really interesting because it's occasionally kind of hard to tell what's going on. I feel like Capullo's panel usage here is more style over substance. It's not really telling the story, but it is something, I think, something you learn from McFarlane. It's so dynamic that it kind of overwhelms its lack of storytelling and gives you it kind of puts you in the moment, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it really did. It's a very emotional drawing, very in the moment. Cog sees someone terrifies him. We cut to Clown, who starts doing what he does, kind of doing his diatribe, but then he also kind of gets literally a whiff of what's going on, and we get the first big hint of, oh, his suit is literally rebelling against him, and it's, again, trying to go home. Then we cut back to Cog, who we now see spawn in this weird spider web of tumorous worm things all growing out of him.
Yeah, some kind. It's not explicitly called a cancer, but he is growing like these weirdly horrifying living tumors, and even the spikes of his costume are growing wild and out of control. There's some kind of worm creature that tries to consume Cagliostro, and I love the look on Cog's face when the thing's about to eat him, because it's just like, do you really want to fuck with me? It's hilarious.
It's really great that we get Cog. The first big hint of, okay, Cog can handle this, no problem, what's going on, and of course we get the reveal that Cog was indeed a spawn.
Which I remember, again, reading that issue at 15, 16, however old I was, off the stands of a 7-Eleven in Austin, Texas, where I went to visit my aunt. She bought that comic for me. And just the thunderclap of, in short, I'm a spawn, that line. Holy shit. Such a major, just like, gasp revelation moment.
It's straight to the point, too. It's something that it's reversed what Cog normally does in the series, which is great. Instead of like over-explaining or under-explaining, he goes straight to the point. We mentioned Terry finding out, he needs to go to a neurologist. There's more and more things going on. We don't know what's going on. We then get the oddest, to me, again, artwork incredible. The singular page of Cygor.
We get one page of Cygor in this issue, and I'm so bummed, because all it is basically to serve to remind us that Cygor's out there and exists. And this is the one point where I feel like McFarlane did drop the ball on his subplot plotting, because it's been a solid 4 issues since we've seen him, and we only get one page of this amazing creature that we both love.
Yeah, and we get more the kind of official confirmation he's going to New York specifically for Simmons. Which, is what it is. And then we get kind of a real-life horrifying moment that McFarlane loves throwing every now and then of Terry blacking out on the road on the drive home and getting just completely wrecked by a car. Or a giant Mack truck, not a car.
By a 18-wheeler. Followed by Twitch being so jumpy, he pulls a gun out when his car throws a rod.
It is, and then
so it's a nice little juxtaposition there. It's smaller, and you do kind of wish the issue had ended with Terry's accident, but it's a nice little Terry's accident, page of Sam and Twitch, and then page of Wanda finding out.
Yeah, and it's a nice little thing of Wanda just racing off to the crash. We then cut to, ambulance going straight to the hospital. We have Wanda running in, stuff we've seen a lot in different movies or things. Wanda running in, trying to figure out what's going on with her husband. What's going on?
I gotta say, the opening page of issue 50, again, picking that up off the 7-Eleven stands when I was a teenager, just the sheer momentum and pace and action of that page, I felt like I could hear the ambulance, blaring. I felt like I could hear the vroom of the car going past. It's just so fucking kinetic. It's an astonishing page of artwork.
You can tell for issue 50 they're bringing it out. We have Cog explaining to Spawn that your anger is feeding it. You being so tied to your past and still angry about your past is what is making your suit go more and more and more and more out of control. You're feeding it. You're the one that's enabling it to become this monster. And then again, we cut back to that juxtaposition of Cyan happy, smiling, eating, and then going back to the light, dark, finding out that Terry has a cancerous tumor that is growing extremely fast, extremely large, is kind of going out of control.
Completely inoperable.
Yeah, it's inoperable. We then have that, what we talked about earlier, the reveal of Wanda, and with a little bit of her, a very good poignant point of her saying, hey, she's 29. This will be the second husband she loses in a 6-year period.
Yeah,
And
also just the way Capullo draws her, having once she no longer has to put on a strong face for Cyan, she literally collapses to the floor of her house. She cannot physically lift herself. It's again, we've talked about this before on this podcast. If there's one thing Todd McFarlane almost never misses, it's melodrama. Yeah. This dude, for all of his, writing about gods and demons and angels and hellspawn, this dude can write such good soap opera.
He really can. It is great.
It's shocking how good his soap opera is.
It really is. And can even go now. We go Spawn going back to Granny's. She is kind of surprised to see him so soon, and then we get Spawn finding out that, Terry is very sick. But also, again, Granny being written extremely well.
Mm-hmm. And then also being like, of course you're going to help him. You're an angel. And I really, so much of this is tinged with nostalgia for me, but I remember that hitting so strongly that, after, and having not read the issues leading up to it, but I mean, you had that conversation with Cog earlier about Spawn being like, so I'm literally composed of evil. Yeah. And Granny being like, nah, you're good, son. You're going to help him. I know you will. You're a good person. And Al choosing to live up to that expectation instead of choosing to continue to be what he thinks he is such an incredibly powerful narrative moment.
Oh, it is. It really is. It's done so great. I also love that, like, Spawn's disguise whenever he talks to Granny. It's just a nice little touch. We have
it's very Marvel Comics thing in a way that I genuinely feel like McFarlane is paying some tribute to Jack Kirby, and I'm absolutely okay with that. I may be totally off base, but that is my feel of it.
Mm-hmm. I can agree. I think there could be truth in that. You have very, very realistic human moments of Wanda sleeping by Terry's side in the hospital, just being worn out. Spawn literally spying on them, not very confused because, of course, this is his ex-wife, his ex-best friend. What's going on? Should he help?
And he literally has that Faustian temptation of, if I let him die, maybe she'll come back to me. Mm-hmm. But again, it's Granny's words that make him sacrifice himself to prove that he is a better person than what he believes he is.
It's very true. We then go into Terry's state declining fast. He's in a coma. You have no clue if he's going to make it, but it's looking like he probably won't. Getting ready for the worst, and Spawn ultimately deciding that Wanda being happy is more important than him existing, essentially.
Right.
And you get the first time that Terry finds out that Spawn is Al as he uses his evil energy to save Terry.
Yeah, much like he did Bobby.
Yeah.
30 issues ago, which again, I did not know that at the time when I read it, but I love how those two situations mirror each other here.
And then issue 50 is interesting. A lot happens in 50, but it's also...
This is still issue 50. That was issue
50. Issue 50 part 2.
Yes, because this is the McFarlane side penciled. Because we had a Capullo on pencils in the first half. McFarlane pencils the second half.
Which is the first time he's unpenciled in quite a while in Spawn at this point. And it kind of this second half is almost constantly juxtaposition between Spawn going through literal hell and Terry and Wanda going through a miracle.
Right, and it has a lot of those, especially I think since Todd is penciling, it has a lot of the McFarlane tropes. You get a lot of splash pages with not so much panels as stylized designs with different characters, some overwrought narration, a lot of exposition. But again, for a book that's meant to draw in new readers, as it did me, it works and it's right and it's kind of necessary at this point to kind of catch people up on where Spawn's been for the last 50 issues.
True. Then you have, I believe this is a Capullo piece. I'm almost positive this panel is one of my favorite ones in this one, where you have the giant prepare to die demon. I actually think I'm almost positive that's a Capullo piece.
Where's the prepare to die demon?
It's the big splash page a little bit later, towards the back half of the book. After
prepare demon to eat your heart.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, that's a great splash page. Yeah, I can definitely see Capullo in that. It definitely looks more Capullo than Todd. You're right.
I'm almost positive it's because I think that went up for sale not super long ago, and I want to say it was
Okay.
a Capullo piece. I could be wrong, but you get that, and then you have it ends on the big semi cliffhanger of what's going on of Malbolgia literally just laughing back as Clown appears to go to the party.
Yeah, Cyan's.
Yeah.
Well, Cyan is at another friend's birthday party, but Clown is the clown there, and again, that was a tremendous cliffhanger at the time, especially considering Spawn ends this issue, literally being torn apart by or working to fight against demons just at the very first level of hell. He's not even made it down to Malbolgia's level, much less anywhere he needs to be, and he's already been his eyes gouged out, flesh torn from him, creatures literally feeding off his necroplasm. So he's just begun his descent, and who can protect Cyan? Who knows to protect Cyan at this point? Just a tremendous cliffhanger. I don't think it's any secret with me saying that issue 50 is by far my favorite issue of this volume.
Yeah,
and,
I think
one of my favorite issues of the run, one of my favorite comics ever produced.
I honestly, I think this volumes were very odd for me because I think it bookends extremely well. I think 45 is really strong, and I think of course 50 is extremely strong.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a great. And this is the first time for the cliffhangers of the origin volumes. I'm totally okay with it ending on a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. Agreed. It's an issue 50. It's a big cliff. It's a type of cliffhanger that is a cliffhanger, but not one where you have to pick up next issue. It's more of a oh shit, we're in a new chapter in the Spawn lore.
That's exactly right. As opposed to, previous cliffhangers where it was like, oh, this is going to get resolved next issue. Why didn't they just tuck it into the back of this one? This is more, you're right. This is the next part of the story.
Yeah.
This is the cliffhanger designed to bring me back for another 100 issues, not next issue.
Exactly. Yeah, we're at that point now in Spawn's lore, Spawn's legacy, Spawn's issues where even the worst of the issues are not bad. They at worst are mundane, but still readable and still enjoyable. There's nothing that and even when I say mundane, mundane doesn't really do it fair because the art is typically exceptional. There's always a story beat or two that makes the even lamest issue rise above being a boring or bad issue. Because even the Trimmer stuff that's not great, you still have little plot points that are cool. You still have great art. You still have making the best out of a situation.
And again, this is apparently the theme of the night. McFarlane has really figured out how to juggle the subplots.
Oh, yeah.
So like you said, even if the main story, i.e. the Trimmer story, is subpar, you kicked off that Terry subplot. You had stuff going on in the background. This is the Sam and Twitch developing their own agency stuff. There's all that stuff going on in the background that keeps you entertained and keeps you pulled in from issue to issue to issue.
Yeah, and this is all speaking of sub stories that we may talk about one day. This is also, I believe, around the time that the Sam and Twitch comic itself was. This in the early years? I have to look at the dates to be exact.
I was gonna say, I feel like it had to be later than this because I bought those issues off the stand, not knowing who Brian Bendis was at the time, and that would have been after I'd actually I'd stopped buying Spawn, but I like Sam and Twitch enough that I wanted to give their series a shot.
Okay, that would make sense. Yeah, I can't remember. I'm horrible at remembering the exact years, especially when it's this time period where a lot of it blends together for me personally. Where it's like I know it's.
Well, you've read a lot of this all at the same time too.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been through a lot of this already.
That's true. Yeah, okay. So their series started in '99.
Right. That sounds right.
And I don't know exactly what year this. Let me check that real quick.
I'm gonna say '96. I feel like '96.
That. I don't want August 24th. That doesn't help me here, guys. That's not the date I need. I hate. You're right. 96, June 96 on this one. Very nice. Yeah. So yeah, we're pretty far removed from that actually. That's actually, it is weird because to look back when we think about delays and stuff, man, Spawn actually got to a point where it had a pretty consistent schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, compared to every other Image book, we're at 96 and have 50 issues in of a book that hasn't been around for well, for a decent amount of time, but not an impossible amount of time. Where
Right.
again, we mentioned it when you have little crossovers mentioning Wildcats or Youngblood or anything else, where at the same amount of time or more time, they're only at like issue like 15 to 20.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
it is
especially
Youngblood,
man,
yeah.
Youngblood was horrifically off schedule almost from the beginning.
Well, even the jokes earlier on about like the Fanatic issue where they are mentioning books like Pit, being extremely late. When they have
Right.
other series that they're talking about, it is it is weird how well they kept on schedule. And at this point, you have Tony Daniel, Greg Capullo, McFarlane. You have a rotating cast of incredible creators that are making it happen pretty easily. Although, sadly, I think this is the last bit of Tony Daniel we see.
I believe it. I think I remember you saying his initial run was relatively short, and then he goes on to develop his own stuff and comes back better and stronger, right?
Let me check and see, because Volume 9, let me pick it up. Tell me who's in this one. The rest have been very easy on this. Don't make this hard. No, Tony Daniel's in the next... wait a minute. Yeah, I guess he is. Is he? Yeah, he is. The issue numbers are...
Okay.
The issue numbers are wrong here.
Oh, no.
That's fun. So, yeah, sorry, I was looking at... maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Thank you, Origin, for being fucked up on this. I don't think he is in this volume. Yeah, I don't think he's in this volume. For some reason, the opening boilerplate has Greg Capullo issues 39, 41, 43. Tony Daniel issue 40, 42, and 44, which is correct for those issues. But this is issues 51 to 56.
Right. Oh man, that sucks.
I'm almost positive that was his last little bit.
I'll believe it. Like I say, I know you're much more well versed in this than I am.
Yeah, that's gonna bug the fuck out of me. That's weird. That is a weird, semi-typo. So let's just fuck up.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to call that. I was not expecting to look at that and be like, that was throwing my brain away for a loop. I thought I picked up the wrong volume there.
Oh man, yeah, but I feel like certain typos are par for the course because remember, I think it was last volume they reprinted one of McFarlane's responses to a letter as they always do at the beginning of the Origins, and they left a typo in the reprint of the response in the Origins volume, which I kind of thought was honestly just kind of delightful. Just like, yeah, Todd fucked up, and we're just gonna let that fuck up live for eternity. Even in collections.
Yeah, so the next few issues are if we get the team of art by, and it's Todd McFarlane, Greg Capullo, and Danny Miki.
Okay. So McFarlane's back on pencils for a while, huh?
I don't know if he's on pencils or just inks, to be honest, because it's just saying art by. So I honestly don't know.
I remember there was a period where he was just inking. That's right.
Yeah. So I'm not 100% positive. And again, this has thrown me off. I'll have to look at through my singles now. The first time on the show having the fucking singles will help.
Yeah, that's true. That's excellent.
This is where I start to have my collection actually has a lot of these.
Yeah, it does. You're hitting one of your strong swings of actual issues. I'm starting to. There's no way I would have been able to hold on to them all this time, but I am kind of regretting not having the 30 odd issues that I had at one point. Right now, but that's okay because I've got everything digitally. Again, not a shill for Humble Bundle, but this podcast literally would not exist if there hadn't been a Spawn Humble Bundle.
We also, I think, coming up, I believe we have the Savage Dragon crossover pretty soon.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's like a Savage Dragon in Hell or some shit like that. I'm almost positive Savage Dragon's in this volume somewhere.
That could be actually pretty exciting. I have thoughts about Savage Dragon and Eric Larson that I look forward to discussing. Before we sign out, I did want to ask, are you in agreement that issue 50 is the best issue in this particular volume?
Oh, yeah. I think for me, it ends off extremely strong. I'm actually a pretty big fan of the first issue, too. But I also think, again, this is a weird issue. I very much follow the roller coaster issue of it builds up really fast, and there's a pretty big dip in the middle, but then we go extremely high and back.
Right. If you had to pick, what would be your least favorite issue of the volume?
The first Trimmer issue.
That's a good pick. Mine would either be the second Trimmer issue, or weirdly, issue 49.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why, and it's the weirdest thing. I cannot keep the events of that issue in my head. I absolutely, every time I think about it, I forget what happens in that issue. It's not bad, it holds I have no memory.
Yeah, that's fair. When we get those middle ones with, like you said, a lot of subplot, especially, and a lot of build up, you have those moments where you're like, okay, this happens, but what else is going on here? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
By the way, yeah, 52 does have Savage Dragon in it.
Sweet. That's very exciting.
Yeah, no, we're gonna have some fun.
We're going to have a discussion about Eric Larson and the Savage Dragon, because again, I have a thought, especially about Eric Larson as a creator, that I am very much looking forward to expressing. I might blow your mind.
Spawn, Eric Larson, one of the oddest ones. Yeah, so I do believe most of these next issues, pencils are Greg Capullo, and inking is going back and forth with McFarlane and Danny.
Nice. That promises to be very good art.
So I had to dig through some of my singles, and they are mostly all looking like they are saying that. So, okay, cool. That makes sense. Also, now I just want to know what's with this weird typo / misprint of like volume, like, what was that? Volume like 6 or 7 at the beginning of this.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. But again, I'm about to have to make a decision of, do I switch over to my hardcovers, singles, or digital, because I've got about 2 or 3 more volumes physically before my trades are gone, and those trades are oddly either out of print or hard to find. Like past, I want to say, Origins Volume 13 are hard to find, and then we start getting that weird stuff where they weren't Origins for a while.
Mm. Well, there's at least 20 Spawn Origins, because I have the first 20, and then after that I go to singles.
Yeah.
So I have digital singles up for the rest of it. Which I know when we announced the podcast, we said we were going to do it by story arc, but I kind of like just doing 6-issue chunks. I feel like that's a really good, even if it ends us off in a weird spot. It's a good set of issues for us to have a chance to go through every issue and talk about their contents and the story overall.
I think so, and I think that's something for you guys out there listening. Once we get to that point, because we are now halfway to that point of just about.
Yeah.
What would you guys like to see? Would you like us to keep doing the 6-issue arcs? Would you like us to maybe go by just 5 issues, just a story, or what feels right? Because we're getting more and more close to that territory where I start being like, okay, well, not only do Origins stop at 20, but then even the novels that do come out are very intermittent. And it's like, oh, well, they have them for, this big story, but then there's like 3 issues missing, and then the next big story.
Yeah.
So let it out there.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, so out there, let us know what you would like to see. Let us know what you thought of this volume. We always love hearing from you guys. It's a pleasure getting all the fun comments, all the not only nice comments, creative comments, constructive comments, any of those comments we love reading, we love seeing, and you guys have been a blast and very nice, very respectful. We appreciate them a ton.
I'm a Luddite. I'm not on Reddit, but Colby always forwards me screenshots of what people are saying on Reddit, and I am humbled by the amount of response we are getting from everybody there. If you want to shoot us a more personal missive, you are more than welcome to. Like I say, Respawn is a subcast of the Blah Blah Comics Blah Blah Curse Words podcast, which means our email is blahblahpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
You can find us on Twitter, where I am at blahblahpod.
I am at Hellhound F5.
And we're on Instagram, where I am at Blah Blah Podcast, and Colby is still at Hellhound F5.
Yes.
We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/Blah Blah Podcast. I occasionally post Spawn screenshots on there. Colby does a really great job of moderating that side of the social media. And also, like I said, he's the guy that handles our YouTube and our Reddit stuff. So, yeah, Colby's the tech genius. I'm just the old man who likes reading comics. But yeah, we super appreciate the time and attention that all of y'all give us and listen to us talk about this series. Yeah, we'll be back next month with Spawn Origins Volume 9, covering issues 51 through 56.
Yeah.
Apparently, we're getting a Savage Dragon cameo, and that's thrilling for me. Look forward to talking about it and hearing what you guys have to say about it then.
Yes. It's crazy. We're not at 10 yet, which makes sense to fill this wave. But I'm still feeling the way of, man, I cannot believe we're already 8 volumes in.
We're 8 volumes in. We're 50 issues in, dude.
Yeah.
We've done it.
That's true.
We've made it.
We're 50. That's probably why I feel this way. It's a big, getting the first 50 in, we will get, again, now we're past this point where we're at the point where I was excited to get to, where fun shit's going on Spawn. We've gotten all of the like smaller things out of the way we had to get out of the way. We're building to bigger and bigger and scarier and more crazy stories. We have got out of the way, like, whether it be McFarlane, Capullo, Daniel, people having to kind of shave off those rough edges, like I mentioned earlier, we're to the point where no, they're all kind of hitting on all cylinders, and it's before the dip in quality that comes later on, which doesn't last
Right.
for a long time. But again, we're a while away from that kind of
every
stuff.
series is going to have it. I mean,
Yeah.
even Judge Dredd has a period where those comics are atrocious, and so I mean, it happens, and that's totally okay.
We're a while away. We're a good amount away, I would say. So
having said that, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm not. We've got at least another before we get out of the Origins volumes. We're good. I think once we get out of those, because once we get around, I want to say like it's been a minute, but like around the 120 range, I don't know, because we start getting some crazy, man. But even the fact that seems attainable now is crazy to me.
Oh yeah, totally. And like I seem to remember you saying that 150 on is there's a really good run starting about right there.
Yeah, I like it because you get 150 to 175, you get a lot of crazy shit, and then around I think it's 185 is when you get the new Spawn taking over. When then it goes in the series goes in a very different, very very different. Which wow, I was gonna say his name, and I cannot believe I cannot think of his name now.
Yeah, you said it on the last blah blah too. You mentioned his name.
I've literally been rereading the run of the second Spawn, and holy shit, that is gonna blow my brain that I can't think of his name. That's one of those like little slips of Jim Downing. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah,
I was gonna say there's some listener out there who's screaming into his headphones. So thank you for
the Spawn nerd means we've technically already seen him for a minor spoiler.
What?
It's a stupid Spawn thing, but
well, now you got me curious.
Yeah, don't worry. In several volumes, you will find out.
Awesome.
And the rest of you will too, and the rest of you, all we can say is thank you for listening.
Yes, you're the best.
You are. We will see you, like I said, next month. If you want to listen to Blah Blah, please do. We have a new episode all about fandom out. And the next few weeks will probably be next week maybe an off week, so we don't know. There's 3 Jokers coming out. There's a few books, but unless some major news hits, we may be taking. We always have one off week a month. We'll see. Subject and schedule change right now because we're finally getting news of shit again. So Blah Blah and Respawn will keep on schedule, but you may see more of us than normal. Like this week, you're getting 2 episodes. You're getting Blah Blah and Respawn.
Absolutely, and we were happy to do it.
Yes. Thank you guys again. We will see you next time.
Good night, everybody.